This film has been classified X for shrimp as it contains mature content, shrimp sexual reproductive acts, and extreme violence towards algae weavers. Viewer discretion is advised. G'day guys, welcome back to another episode of The Life Aquatic with Rob Bull. Now the first thing that you might notice is that the channel name has changed. Just thought I needed something a bit snappier. So yeah, hope you guys like it. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Now, before we get any further in, I'd just like to say thank you to everyone who's shown support so far. It's been amazing. And a big welcome to any new people who might be watching. I hope you stick around. I hope this helps you out in some way. And if it does help you out, or at least gets you thinking, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you think it might help some of your friends out, don't forget to share it. Okay, so let's get cracking, shall we? Today's episode is on caring for and breeding red cherry shrimp, or N.Davidi. And I'll also make sure that I put all the particulars in the description so that you guys can go back and find it if need be. So first up, we'll start with a little bit of behaviour and what's actually been going on the screens in front of you. And what you're seeing there is what your cherry shrimp, or at least the female ones, spend most of their time doing. She's eating, she's using the first two pairs of her periopods, or legs. These ones have claws, and she's grabbing food with that and shoving it in her mouth. Males eat the same way, but spend a lot more time swimming around looking for mates. A familiar story in the animal kingdom. And I suppose we should talk about what they eat, or perhaps, rather it should be, what don't they eat? But to be on the safe side, we should probably stick to things like blanched vegetables like spinach, zucchini, cucumber, sweet potato, pumpkin, peas, carrots, and green beans are all good options. I tend to blanch them, it tends to help them break down a little bit, and the shrimp seem to like it a lot more. You can also feed them fish foods, algae wafers, flake, basically anything that you can feed to your fish, you can pretty much feed to the shrimp. Now when it comes to feeding shrimp, I do one thing that's a little bit different to everybody else, as far as I know anyway, and that is I use eggshell. Now I use about 1/10 of an eggshell at a time, and I wash it fairly thoroughly until all that is left is the shell membrane. And as I'm sure many of you have guessed, I do that to add calcium to the tank. And since I've started doing it, I've noticed an immense improvement in shrimp production. My concern when I first started doing it was fouling the water, but that never happens. The shrimp love the stuff, they get rid of the membrane really quick, and they slowly eat the shell. They must, it disappears, or it dissolves into the water. Either way, I'm happy with that. And here we have the bit that most of you probably came for, the pornography. Be decent guys, cover your shrimp's eyes. Now what you can see here is just before I put the camera down and walked away to make a coffee, and fortunately it stayed focused on the one in the background, and you can see the male on top of the female, and you can see him kind of stroking her carapace and tapping it with his tail as well. You'll also notice that she doesn't try and get away, and I think that is telling the male that his caresses aren't going to waste. And you'll see here that he makes his way up her body and onto her rostrum and appears to pass her something. Now I'm only postulating here as information on the exact specifics of cherry shrimp breeding. The actual act is actually quite hard to find. But I think that it's the male passing the female a sperm package. You can see the male definitely pass something and the female grab something. So I don't know, I'll leave that one up to you. While I have you here enthralled by pornography, I'll just quickly mention my related video on algae, and I'll leave a link in the description for that. Now fortunately I'd seen what was happening on the screen, and I ran back over and picked up the camera and focused it, because she did move a couple of steps in, and she would have been out of focus. And we're coming to the end of the pornography here, and coming up to the big path. It's pretty obvious and no one should miss it. And here comes the pass right now. And that's the end of the pornography section, so I guess you guys can uncover your shrimp. Hopefully you guys will stick around and have a look at my breeding setup. What you've seen so far is in a community tank actually, surprisingly enough. The breeding setup is quite different, as you guys will see. Before we get there though, I'll finish off the care information. Now your temperature should be somewhere around 22 degrees is where they like it the most, but they will tolerate temperatures between 14 and 29 degrees Celsius. For my American friends, those measurements will be in the description in degrees Fahrenheit. Just for you guys, they'll tolerate a pH of between 6.5 and 8, but they prefer the higher end of that spectrum. And they do like the water a little on the harder side, but as long as you keep your water clean and stable and provide your shrimp with plants, your shrimp will start to breed. So as I've been rabbiting on there, the footage has changed to the breeding tank, and I'll quickly explain that. Obviously you can see it's covered in algae. That is intentional, of course. So what's going on there is I'm using that algae to feed the shrimp, and I'm also using it to judge how much and how often to feed the fish. I have a fairly simple system for this, so if that front glass has more algae on it than it has free space, that means they've been getting a bit too much food, and I cut it back to once a day and one algae wafer at a time with a little bit of flake. And once they've eaten it away so that the majority of the front glass is clear, I up the size of the feedings and the frequency to twice a day, and 2 algae wafers and twice as much flake. And as you can see, it's working a treat for me. I do need to get in there and cull them, but I'm kind of waiting for a female peacock to spit so I can throw some in that tank and she can fatten up on them. So as you can see on the front glass, there's a lot of white dots crawling around. Those are all microorganisms, which indicate that this ecosystem is extremely healthy. They are the subject of a future video. So there we go, it's finally over, and if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe, and as always, until I see you guys again, look after each other, guys.